Atom by Atom, Direct Writing. This manuscript was published in the journal Nano Letters in 2023. What would happen if we could put every atom where we wanted? We would be able to build structures from the atom up, designed for their electronic, optical, chemical, or structural properties. Quantum qubits, quantum sensors, and perhaps even full computing circuits could be tailored with atomic specificity to elicit the emergent quantum properties of the materials. But how can we do it? It is well known in the electron microscopy community that the E-beam can be used to drive material transformations. Indeed, this is usually labeled beam damage and strictly avoided. However, as our methods for grappling with unintentional beam damage have given greater control over the sample, this has afforded us the opportunity to examine subtle atomistic transformations. Here are a few examples. Links to these publications are provided in the comment section, and the full reference will appear on the screen. In this first example, a silicon trimer was observed occupying a small pore in graphene. Under the influence of the E-beam, it was observed to rotate. In this second example, a few additional silicon atoms are occupying a slightly larger pore in graphene. This 6-atom cluster dynamically rearranged between two different configurations under the beam. In the third example, a single substitutional silicon atom was examined. This atom occupies a single vacancy site, and under E-beam irradiation, it was observed to switch places with the neighboring carbon atoms. Similarly, in the final example, a single vacancy was observed to diffuse through the graphene lattice, driven by energy imparted by the beam. These observations, in particular this one, began to capture the imagination. Perhaps a silicon atom could be moved intentionally. A follow-on study by the same researchers confirmed that indeed, through carefully controlled E-beam irradiation, a silicon atom was able to be moved 7 steps through the lattice. This result was independently replicated by our group, and both groups subsequently showed extended movement of the silicon atoms over longer distances. This silicon atom movement has also been performed using graphene nanotubes. In the interest of being able to assemble atoms together, the first examples of the assembly of primitive structures atom by atom in the stem were demonstrated using silicon atoms. While there is a certain elegance to be able to move a single silicon atom around in the graphene lattice, it is not obvious there is any immediate application. Our research then shifted toward discovering what other types of atoms we could drive into the graphene lattice. We found that we could attach a silicon atom intentionally by first damaging the lattice and then sputtering silicon from nearby material. Silicon atoms then attached to the damaged location. By evaporating other elements onto the graphene, we could use the same procedure to insert them as well. But this could only be done over short distances, and the E-beam was serving a dual purpose, both damaging the lattice as well as sputtering nearby atoms in a sequential repetitive process. In this work, we show that if the right environmental parameters are discovered, a continuous direct writing procedure can be performed, atom by atom. We began by evaporating tin onto a graphene sample. Because we had not yet demonstrated that tin can also be placed in the graphene lattice, we replicated the insertion process using a tin nanoparticle as the source material. By dragging the beam back and forth along these dotted arrows, we can damage the lattice and sputter tin atoms into defect sites. This is not surprising, as it is basically indistinguishable from the insertion process and results for other elements. Then we increased the sample temperature to 900 degrees Celsius and observed highly mobile tin atoms spontaneously diffusing along the graphene step edges. We then zoomed in to this dotted region. Here we can more clearly see the tin atoms decorating the step edge. And of course, there is a conspicuous line of tin atoms already in the graphene. What we did was place a manually movable subscan box next to the step edge and confined the beam to scan only in that box. The box was then manually moved across the graphene while visually monitoring the subscan image tile. This provided an updating image of what was happening to the sample in real time, so that the speed of the movement could be matched to the speed of the observed insertion. At this point, I remembered I needed to document what was happening, and acquired this image. Then, I continued on a little further. It is quite curious to note that we were not able to start this writing procedure at arbitrary locations in the graphene. Instead of inserting tin atoms, we just made holes. It was only at the step edge where this process worked. This suggests that the step edge and the line of tin atoms in the graphene are playing a significant role in influencing the availability of tin to the region of interest. Further work is needed to fully understand this process, but we have established that with the appropriate parameters, we can draw continuous lines atom by atom. The electron beam here is no longer required to sputter source atoms. That function is being supplied by the elevated substrate temperature and the spontaneous diffusion of tin. These results suggest that further refinement of the global parameters may offer the ability to pattern atoms wherever we like and begin to tailor at least graphene atom by atom. Links to the publication can be found in the comment section below.